Hello, everyone. Welcome. My name is Judith de Lange, and I'm working for the Dutch Data Center Association and the Kickstart Europe conference. Thank you for joining today's session. This morning, we have released our annual market study, The State of the Dutch Data Centers, the Roadmap to Recovery. And in today's session, we will share the most important insights from that market study. Then after today's knowledge session, it's going to be around an hour. Then we will start a networking program. So there's plenty of time for online networking. There are about 500 participants. They can all be found on the networking platform. You can request meeting invites, or you can make use of the randomized option. So there's also an option to get randomly selected via the algorithm of the networking platform. In case that you haven't set up a profile yet, you can still do this by creating a profile with the email address you use to register for this event. You see the link on the screen here below. Networking is available until 5:30 today. And then we turn to today's program. The market report, which we released today, is divided in two segments. So first, we turn to the Dutch data center market and the survey that PB7 held among our Dutch data center participants. The focus here is on the Dutch hyperscale data centers, the co-location data centers, and then the co-location data centers that are located in the MRA or in the Amsterdam hub, and on the nationwide regional data centers, so the co-location data centers that are outside the MRA hub. After a short introduction of the most important findings of the Dutch domestic market, we have a Q&A session with Peter Vermeulen from PB7, who did the survey and the research on the market. In case you have questions, you can type them in the chat, or you can use the Q&A box, which is on the bottom of your screen. The second part of today's session is more focused on the European market, research that CBRE has done. This is mainly focused on the Amsterdam or the MRA hub. In comparison to the other European markets. So what's happening there, how is Amsterdam's competitive position? So that's more focused on that. Also there, we have a short introduction with the most important figures. And then we have a Q&A session with Penny Madsen from CBRE. Then the last speaker of today, we're very happy to have him here. It's the freshly elected president of the European Data Center Association, Michael Winterson. He will be giving us an update on the Climate Neutral Data Center Pact. This is an important project for our industry. We are working very hard together with other trade associations on this pact, trade associations all across Europe. And that's a project that we are also taking on together with the European Commission. And we're very happy to share on the work that has been done so far. And lastly, as I said before, there's plenty of time for networking this afternoon until 5:30. So yeah, make sure not to miss out, make use of these possibilities. You see the link also on the screen for that. Stijn, next slide, please. Yeah, thanks. Almost everything that we shared today, so the insights, the graphs, all the other statistics, they're all mentioned in the State of the Dutch Data Centers 2021 report, the Roadmap to Recovery, which is shown here on the screen. It's freely available for download via the link shown on screen. So you can download it, and all the graphs, everything we shared today can be found there, also more in depth. Good for you to know, the session will be recorded and made available later this week. And without further ado, I would like to give the floor to Stijn Grove. He's Managing Director of the Dutch Data Center Association and Digital Gateway to Europe. And he will lead you further through these presentations. Stijn.
Thank you very much for the introduction, Judith, and welcome everybody. My name is Stijn Grove, Managing Director of the DDA and Digital Gateway to Europe, and I will give you an overview of the numbers and do the interviews with our speakers today. with our experts today. The DDA, National Trade Association, established in 2014, voice of the Dutch industry, promoting the sector. In that, already almost 7 years, we have gained almost 93% of all the Dutch data center providers. Very happy about that. 36 operators. There are actually one more, but not a co-location provider. We have a lot of suppliers, vendors, also in our organization. We work a lot with other national associations, but also a lot with international associations. So more on that on www.dutchdatacenters.nl. Also, we have an English site, so a lot of information can be seen there. Our participants, 36 at this moment, various providers from hyperscale to co-location, regional, international, a real diverse representation, and 90% of the capacity of the Dutch market. The Dutch data centers are spread around the Netherlands, and although the scale is not put in here, but if you put the city of New York over the Netherlands, you have the whole of the Netherlands. So we're not a very big country, but we have several data center hubs within the country. Of course, the most known is the Amsterdam area, but also in the North region, the Groningen area, a lot of data centers there in that area. Also in the central east part of the Netherlands, many data centers there. And the same with the south and the west region. There you see that basically the latency within the Netherlands is close to zero because it's such a small country. So basically, sometimes people refer Amsterdam as the whole of the Netherlands, basically because every data center in the Netherlands can do a lot of services also internationally. Our main partners, very distinguished partners, Eversheds Sutherland, Socomec, Legrand, Minkels, Watts, and Stultz. Very happy with them aboard. And also with our partners, a lot of partners from many different areas within the data center ecosystem. So from the planning of data centers, the running of data centers, and the building of data centers. All of these infographics are also can be downloaded and give you an overview of really the Dutch market, which is a well-developed data center market. Now go to the report, and I will quickly go through it on each area. I will start with a short introduction, then I will move over to the Dutch figures, and then I'll have a Q&A with Peter, afterwards with Penny on the international figures, and then afterwards with Michael regarding the sustainability part. So kicking off, we have called our new report the Roadmap to Recovery. Because basically the digital foundation, which are the data centers, is home for is vital for working from home. Home is vital for new technologies as AI, and especially post-Corona, we need more data centers. The world has changed. The world has changed to even a more digital world due to Corona. And that has changed tremendously. Our Dutch Central Bureau of Statistics and Planning expects that the amount of working hours from home will double post-Corona. So we need more digital infrastructure to host that, to make that possible. And also, if you look at IDC, if you look at McKinsey, they see more and more focus on the working from home. The whole balance has changed, and we move more to a working environment, which is part home, which is part in the office. So there's a whole shift due to COVID. And if you look at the importance of digital infrastructure for that, you see that the Dutch economy, which is a very much service-like economy, with a very good digital infrastructure, had one of the lowest economic downfalls. Actually, in the World Economic Forum says that also it's in the top 4 to recover quickest post-corona due to also the digital infrastructure it has. So you see that it becoming more and more important to focus on the digital infrastructure, to focus on ways there where we can move forward to the future-proof sort of like economy, which is a digital economy. We have done a lot of research, and we do that for the 7th time with PB7, with Peter, and we have looked at the effects of COVID, of Corona. And basically what we see, on one hand, we see that it's still moving more towards cloud applications, towards SaaS application, and that is something that we continue to see, but it has gone further. And so we looked at it, and for some, the biggest part, we saw no change. So there was a solid stream of information, of migration, of change towards the data center. But others saw it sort of like lower or go faster. So it's a little bit of a continuous flow. If you look at the Dutch market, we see a growth of 6% to 400,000 square meters in terms of white space, a total of 184 data center facilities. That number has dropped. So small data centers have closed down and moved into bigger, larger facilities, which are more efficient. 74% of the multi-tenant data center floor is located in around the MRA. That's sort of like a 50-kilometer radius. And new data centers plans around 211,000 square meters in the coming years. More than 1/3 is outside that area. Challenges in the MRA is sort of like really the power, staff. These are the top 2 challenges. Finding good engineers and getting access to power, that's top of mind. And if you look at legislation, on the other hand, it's sort of like a much smaller challenge in terms of what has changed, looking at our previous report. Outside the MRA is more like the focus on new customers, the sustainability part that is coming, but also if you look at sort of like the negative sentiment has been fairly high recently on data centers. That is also impacting basically the regional data centers. Some media attention looked at 1 or 2 hyperscale data centers, but that really took the sentiment also about the whole sector, which is very unnuanced, but it happened. If you look at sustainability, the data center has promised to become completely carbon neutral by 2030, one of the first green deals in Europe, very impressive by this sector. And if you look at the Netherlands, we have seen a raise of the energy consumed, the green energy consumed in Dutch data centers from 86 to 88%. We expect that in 2026 in the Netherlands, we will be almost 100% green. So really this sector is taking on the responsibility, and it's greening its resources. If you look at the residual heat, some big projects have been announced, and some big in the pipeline. We're already at this moment at 6,000 buildings that are currently heated by data center residual heat. Not everywhere it's possible, but where we can create circularity, we've been looking at it for a long time. We've been working on changing legislation, but it's now starting to sort of take place, and we're very happy about that. Water, also some media attention about water, but actually the water use of data centers is well, extremely little if you look at the Dutch water consumption. There's a lot of progress and a lot of effort is being put into not using water at all within a couple of years. So that's also top of mind everywhere. You see that most energy in a data center is consumed by customers. There is more and more focus on that. A lot of data centers are working with their customers to help educating them on their service. The issue is that we don't own the server. We cannot touch the server. It's our customer's server. We don't know what is running on the server and what they made decisions. But there is also a focus on that. But a lot of data centers are helping customers to see if they can make the next step. Also in terms of making it possible or making it easier to recycling the equipment within the data center. And if you then look at the input-output model, and that's something that I would like to also ask Peter more about that. You see a lot of investments over the last 15 years, 14 billion. You see a lot of added value every year on the Dutch economy already, and that's growing every year. From a direct working force for 7,000 full-time employees to a total one of almost 11,000 with no emissions. So this is really something that is the future-proof economy is leaving a small footprint, but it's becoming more and more important in every part of our economy. And with that, I would like to welcome Peter on stage. I will stop the share for now. Peter, hi. Welcome on the webinar, and very happy to work with you again for the 7th time. Time goes fast.
Yes, it is. Thank you very much. Well, very glad to be here again. Yeah.
Yeah. The good thing about when we started the first report, it was thin. It was, but it started so like the basic form is still, you can still look at it, and you can see after 7 years we have really streamlined the report. So I'm very happy that where we are now. And if you look at so like a first question that we have, the difference between the regional data center, international focused data center, and hyperscale data centers. How do you see the growth of the regional data centers compared to the international data centers in the Netherlands?
Well, it's very interesting. I mean, if you look at the last couple of years, then you notice that the international data centers, especially in MRA, were growing much faster compared to regional data centers. And actually what we've seen now in the year of COVID, we've seen that there are a lot of new opportunities also more on a domestic level. So you see that as opposed that a lot of their customers, as opposed to investing in on-premises data centers or locations, that they now, if they're growing, they're using co-location facilities, they are doing more in the cloud, and of course when they get doing things more in the cloud, and also local cloud companies will have a bigger footprint in the data center. So there are more opportunities emerging there. So I think also for them it's an interesting time. So not just because of COVID that it provides opportunities, but also I think in the longer term there are also more developments that I think will bring you terrains of growth for domestic data centers, such as in the long run, for example, edge opportunities that we may be talking a bit more about.
Yeah, and if you look at sort of like the real challenges in terms of these larger, you've seen in the report, the challenges is more on power and on people on one side, and still on the customer side, and on sustainability on site. Are there other challenges or that you see between the different types of data centers?
Well, when you look at data centers in the MRA, or for example also hyperscale data centers, then it now is a lot of the challenges have to do with scarcity. So there's scarcity in terms of talent, there's scarcity in terms of space, in access to energy. So basically it's just become very busy around Amsterdam, and But I guess everybody has felt that, and that's a big challenge. But still, one of the good things is that customers sort of keep coming. So it's a very attractive place around Amsterdam to continue to grow. If you look at it more at the domestic level, then it's always the challenge: where is our growth coming from? So how can we get SMBs on board? How do we make sure that IT companies or SaaS companies come to us as opposed to Amsterdam, for example? So does our business model still match? Because, well, as soon as they've got a customer in, the customer may decide to go to the cloud. So first they buy a lot of racks or rent a lot of racks, and then they may start to emptying out racks. So should you go into infrastructure as a service, or should you provide all types of services? That's a continuing challenge for a domestic data center.
Okay, and if you look at then also in terms of the services that smaller or regional data centers are giving out to the customer or servicing to customers, is there also a challenge? You see that there is a move from IaaS to other services. Could you tell a little bit more about that?
Yes, well, I just mentioned that first they may move into co-location, or they move their centers offsite, so basically into a co-location facility, and then they may start to send workloads into infrastructure as a service. And first they may be quite hesitant; they may not be too sure about public cloud companies, but quite often they still start to experiment also with public cloud. So they may be happy for a while with sort of really local, not very detailed infrastructure as a service services, but after a while they want more of a diverse mix. So what they are looking for, what they are looking at the domestic data center is a place where sort of everything comes together. So they've got their own servers, where they can maybe have some infrastructure as a services. They may have a number of SaaS services in terms of backups, security, etc., and they want to have a good on-ramp to public cloud services. And that's sort of where this is going. There are different business models. I mean, there are some data centers that are sort of part of a big IT group where they sort of form a part in. But in general, if I look sort of at the trend currently, is that it's sort of a bit back to basics, so a bit more to co-location and connectivity, and then making sure that you service your customer as best as you can.
Okay, there was a lot of talk about data gravity and edge data centers. If you look at edge data centers, is the Netherlands already edge ready, because there's so many regional data centers? And what about data gravity? Could on these two topics, could you tell us a little bit more what you are seeing?
Sure. Well, this is very interesting. I mean, first, when you think about data gravity, I mean, when this first came up, it was sort of a term that was used, sort of everything is going to move to a central location, into the cloud, for example. And the reason why you want that is because if it's physically close together, it can communicate very rapidly. It doesn't have to travel a few microseconds or whatever across a network, but you can very rapidly communicate. So typically, and when you've got all the data in a single place, it becomes more expensive to move it and more challenging. But if you look at it now, if you look at greater data gravity from a customer's perspective, so from a user perspective, where is this place? I mean, if you're a company in the Netherlands, you don't want data gravity in the US, so you need to have a place close by. So that might be a regional data center, might also be a data center in the MRA. Doesn't really matter, or it could actually be also in Germany, or not that far from here. And that's where you want to have, and that's sort of your starting point, your strategic hub, where you connect all your IT services together. If you look at, if you try to attach it to edge, then there are sort of two edge trends that we need to take into account. If you look at it from a data center, sort of from a data center sector perspective, or a cloud perspective, then you see that I think already across the past 10 years, the big cloud providers, they are not selling their services from a central data center somewhere far away. They've got big data centers all over the place. You can have your data, you can put your data anywhere you want. You can put it in the EU. Quite often you can put it in the Netherlands if you want to. And that also has to do with data gravity. I mean, the customer needs to have the data close by. It helps with the user experience. So if you have a lot of latency, that might hurt the user experience. And it also definitely helps if you're looking at artificial intelligence, or if you need to have real-time analytics, then you also want to have it close by. So that's one part. So that's why we see that there are more and more data centers, also more and more data center hubs springing up across Europe. Actually, there's not just the Netherlands, but that's why you get this this sort of expanding network of data centers to provide for edge services also, that come from this data gravity need. And then on the other end, you've got really the edge, so really the close to the device market, and that's still something where we see a lot of things going on. So we know that there will be billions of devices that will be connected, or already a lot of devices connected. And that, of course, then it's a challenge. So how do you make sure that those devices, first of all, you don't want to have too much data at the device because that's expensive, but you also want to make sure that you have the right computations at the edge, so you can so it can function.
Okay.
And then you need to have sort of facilities close by, and it can be your own facilities or dedicated facilities that come with the solution. It can also be, I mean, when you look at the Dutch data center network, there is basically within 30 kilometers, there is a data center somewhere. So you can use a lot of the current infrastructure already. So then you actually wonder, so is there really a need in the Netherlands for new micro data centers? Might be a question. That may be the case. Well, I don't think anytime real soon. For two reasons. So first of all, you've got the regional data centers that can do a lot of things and provide a safe environment for your edge service, your edge nodes. But also, well, if you want to roll out a network of, let's say, sea containers across the Netherlands, it's going to be so difficult. It's so difficult to get the permits in.
Yeah.
So you might want to try to work with, for example, Cellnex, who has all the antennas, and there might be some opportunities there. But in general, it's much more likely that in the Netherlands that the current network of data centers will probably provide most of the space.
Okay. Well, I have to break in. It's a lot of questions, but also we have a tight schedule. So a lot of this information, really good research by Peter, again, PB7, is in the report. So I would refer to you that. So thank you very much, Peter. And we will move on with the next area on the international market. So thank you very much, Peter. Looking at the European market research, we have always also worked together with CBRE on our report. So one time on the overall Dutch market, on the other hand, on the international part of the Dutch market. So what we or what CBRE is seeing is sort of like Amsterdam market growth. So like a tale of two markets after the moratorium. So you see a moderate growth since the moratorium that had really an impact, but continued demand, and actually demand is higher than 2019. So there's a lot of focus to look for connectivity-based co-locations, so interconnectivity, most used words about that. But also you see a lot of second-tier providers, cloud providers, hosting providers, media companies expanding their footprint and looking at the Amsterdam market. So significant growth again. Yeah, the digitalization is in full force and continuing. So a lot of extra capacity, not consumption, but capacity comes online. So comparable to the year 2019. There's still a high vacancy of 23%, and if you look at the overall numbers, you can see the growth, and you see also the vacancy numbers. But still a very healthy growth. So lots of valuable connectivity, which attracts a lot of customers, a lot of companies, skilled workforce, and also the ecosystem, like we said, on the ecosystem of the maps that we showed in the beginning, and a close proximity to other European markets. I think in Europe, the London, Amsterdam connections is the connection where the most amount of data flows. So there's a lot of close proximity data connections. Government very much focuses on sustainability. We have been having policies on the data centers for many years, so that is a real challenge. We see that now becoming everywhere in Europe. So I think we're out of the moratorium, which is good, but that is also, I think, has a lot to do with this one of the first markets that have seen such a thing, but also the first markets that comes out of these kind of challenges. Looking at it in a European context, you see a lot of growth in London, a lot of growth in Frankfurt, basically everywhere a lot of growth. Amsterdam still third in Europe. All the hubs, very important for keeping the online foundation present, are continue to grow. And that is also what I would like to ask for. What is the future of the European hubs? And also not only the FLAP region, but also Dublin. I think that it's now FLAP-D, which is now standard in how you say that. How is it going to grow, and where is the customer activity going? We're seeing lots of cloud regions expanding to basically every country in Europe, but where does it leave the hubs? Will they continue to grow? That's a good question for with Penny. So Penny Madsen-Jones, Director of the EMEA Data Center Research. Hi. Welcome. I will stop the share now and I'll get you in full view. Thank you very much again for this year's research. And just looking at the numbers, tremendous growth basically in every market. Well, how do you see the future of data center hubs in Europe? How do you see their importance in the next 5 or 10 years?
Yeah, so I mean, as we've seen, and I mean, you talk about emerging markets, and we have seen incredibly high take-up, but actually a lot of what we see, the emerging markets, they're growing to meet local customer groups. So it's all about adoption of cloud. Their organizers might be adopting new technologies. That's where the cloud providers are going, where they win some of the big deals, maybe with governments or big organizations. In some markets, there's going to be a certain amount of those that can sort of actually come into the markets, those deals. And we think it will plateau off, but there will actually need to be more supply in those markets to get it up to meeting particular cloud requirements. It's a little bit different. And I mean, if I look at it, it's a little bit different in markets such as Frankfurt or London, where you've got hubs that are serving really large GDP. So a lot of this is in line with GDP and growth in application delivery. And we see continued high demand. Q1 for us was actually a record quarter for the Frankfurt, London, Amsterdam, and Paris markets in terms of take-up. And we're only just seeing Paris actually start to see the introduction of the hyperscale cloud providers. So it's on the way up, and that's to serve French government or French customer needs. Amsterdam and Dublin are a little bit different because most of the requirements served out of those markets are actually international in nature. People use those markets, or companies use those markets as a hub to deliver services elsewhere. So we've got slightly different market dynamics. You mentioned Dublin, for example. It's a really small leased data center market, but a really large hyperscale market. And Amsterdam is the only one of the flat markets that's had hyperscale self-build activity. So the markets behave a bit differently. In future, I think we'll still have some of those regional needs. But I do think, yes, we're getting distributed environments, things that need to be served in country. I think we will have more of that. It's probably not, will the hubs stop growing? It's probably more about what the lost opportunity in future might be as we start to see some of those deals originate in other markets.
Okay, very interesting. And in the long runs, do you see some new international hubs within Europe? You see that Marseille is a real interconnection point, but do we expect that, for instance, in the southern parts of Europe, there will be a new international large hub which can sort of like challenge the existing hubs?
Yeah, I think it's once again down to what those markets are used for. So Marseille gets a lot of traction, but it's because there's such a high number of subsea cables meeting at that one point, and all the data needs to be exchanged there. It doesn't necessarily stay in that market, it gets pushed out to other markets from there. So it's a completely different use case. I think what we will see, though, is more importance placed on some of the secondary cities. So we're seeing that as we get constraints in markets like Frankfurt, for example, we're getting more interest in Berlin, second availability zones in countries. We're seeing the same in the UK, in Manchester. I think we will see hubs that provide more regional needs. So Madrid is definitely one of those that's going to serve for the whole of the Iberian Peninsula. But I think we'll also get a lot of localized growth. And I think it's a lot of this comes down to the sheer size of the cloud availability zones that exist where they are. So we also have hubs inside hubs. So in Amsterdam, Schiphol-Rik, for example, is where there's cloud availability zone activity there, which means that for particular hyperscale activity, they need to be in proximity to where those initial deployments were. So it's really about, do you completely build out a new availability zone in a new location? You do that if you have to for a customer requirement or data regulations or latency. But you try and get around that if you've already got a substantial environment somewhere else.
Yeah, and is it also, because if you look at now, we had the moratorium in Amsterdam. There's now some challenges in basically every city, but also in the news was lately on Frankfurt. There were challenges. You've seen it everywhere in the world. Do you see that these hubs are getting bigger? So you talk about proximity, but is it possible now to basically expand it into 80 kilometers in radius, or put it everywhere in the Netherlands? And also focusing on hyperscale, that's a lot of concentration in one part. Do we see also that move a little bit more and to challenge that sort of like capacity, power, and a land problem?
Yeah, so I think the challenge is that at the moment we have this comes up as a question in all markets right now, because the industry is consuming a lot of power. Where they're actually building data centers at the moment in all major markets, we've seen the value of land rise. You can pay a different value if you're an industrial user compared to a data center user, for example. And there's just, as well as grid challenges, the cities have their own requirements for either residential housing, which is a problem in Frankfurt, for example, their own sustainability goals. So we are seeing that happen, and we are seeing hyperscalers looking to possibly push out where they can actually be, but they're still wanting proximity to those main locations. Otherwise, they've got to build out second availability zones. And it's that announcement on a second location that could suggest that they'll go somewhere else. But also important for an availability zone is proximity to the population center and proximity to the carrier hotels and connectivity hubs. So they require more than just the land and the power to build these things. You mentioned ecosystems before. It's all about being able to tap into those ecosystems as well. It's about serving customer needs. We will see, I think, more splitting out of workloads and different use cases. So, you know, there's things about hyperscalers doing stuff around HPC or working with companies that might be doing that. Possibly in future, maybe private cloud environments or even doing edge deployments, and they don't necessarily need to be right in the center of town. I think that's where we'll see growth in a lot of the regional markets.
Yeah, and if you look at, I think if you look at the hyperscale market, a lot of large providers are now spreading everywhere in Europe. Is it, in your view, will every country in Europe will have its own hyperscale data center or a standard set of hyperscale data centers in the future?
Yeah, I think in future that will be the case. I think companies will want to serve, because it's all about protecting investments as well. And you have to be able to know when the next layer of data regulation is going to be placed on top of GDPR. When that next customer is coming in, it's all the race to deliver those services. So it's all about time to market. And I think in time you will. I think the hyperscalers are looking everywhere. Normally what it's taking is just the signing of a deal or, you know, a requirement to be in that country before they hit go. But you can bet they're sort of considering almost all markets today.
So basically, if I can summarize, the growth is still tremendous. There's a lot of movements. There's a lot of challenges everywhere. But the basic thing is that we're moving ahead with tremendous speed because we're digitizing enough. So the growth will continue. That's the problem. The challenge is where we can put the growth on the ground.
Yeah, I think you have to think about it, and we talk a lot about the data center industry, but the data center industry is only growing in line. It comes online in a just-in-time manner more and more. It only grows in line with technology adoption, and you know, it's just moving light years ahead. We're using more technology, particularly over the last year, and I think we're only at the beginning of some of these journeys to a more digitized society. So I think requirements for data center supply, even if you're serving a regional requirement, there will be opportunities for the Dutch market in the future as more Dutch companies, for example, adopt cloud and move to new technologies as well. I think, you know, we won't see any of these markets lose out on supply or take up. I think it will only just grow.
Perfect. Okay, and well, thank you very much. That's I think a lot of the numbers are in the report, so please download the report for further information. If there are any questions, we will summarize them later. Thank you very much, and we'll move over. We're limited in time to the next speaker. Let me share my screen. One moment. So next, I would like to welcome on stage Michael Winterson, talk about sustainability and the data center. Michael, are you already there?
Yep. How you doing, Stijn?
Yeah, very good. Congratulations, first of all, as being elected chairman, president. How do I need to call you now? Or just
Emperor is okay.
Emperor Michael. That's the new. Well, we have a new time is starting today.
No, so the chairman,
congratulations,
European
great to see you so involved, and you have been a lot involved on the sustainability part. A little bit different than our previous discussions with Penny and with Peter. We're going through with, especially on the Climate Neutral Data Center Pact. Could you tell us a little bit in short, for people who have not heard about it, what the Climate Neutral Data Center Pact is and why is it so important?
Yes, absolutely. First off, I'm just putting in a link onto your chat, not for the Climate Neutral Data Center Pact, but for why we exist. when the European Commission launched the Green Deal and Europe Fit for the Digital Age, they always knew that the two were kind of like yin and yang. You need digitization to drive sustainability, but we also need technology to be sustainable itself, and the two go together. And so that's captured in the PDF file that I've just linked to you here. And in the fifth statement in the document called Supporting the Green Transition, Shaping Digital Future, it very clearly states in point 5, make data centers and ICT infrastructure climate neutral by 2030, and ensure they become energy efficient and use more renewable sources. So that was it. That was published in February. If we do not do this ourselves, someone is going to do it for us. And that's the reason behind the pact. We are going to self-regulate to that goal.
Excellent. And I've been also very much part of the pact, also in the board together with you.
Yes.
How is the cooperation with the European Commission is very good. It's actually very active in this. They have embraced like this industry as and the willingness for us to make such a pact. They've seen it as very positive, I think.
Yes, and Stein, your help cannot be, I can't appreciate enough your help. I mean, it's been huge because you provide a lot of the guidelines to how to actually process this. We've created a concept out of thin air, and a lot of that's been due to the army of people who volunteered their time, and you're one of them, so thank you for that. The European Commission is massively positive because, very simply, to the agency that understands us, DG Connect, the European agency involved with technology, they know that they can't regulate this. It's too difficult. They need a flexible system where we're constantly challenging ourselves to improve. And they know that if you write regulation, 1, it's expensive, and 2, it's fixed. And they wanted us to continually reinvent. So they're very excited. However, there are a very large number of ministers of parliament in European Parliament, and there are other director generals that are concerned. And so the future is going to be, how do we create trust?
Yeah, and if you look at I stopped the share, sorry.
Okay.
If you look at where are we in the process now? So there's what are the next steps? When are we going to make the first announcement, but when we're going to go for step 2?
Yeah.
Is that any soon?
Yeah. We've managed to get to 46 data center operators in the cloud and multi-tenant data center space, and 22 trade associations, of which, of course, Dutch Data Center Association, and you are on our board, so thank you. So that success since we launched in January has been phenomenal. But we have to build the structures. Literally, how do you run a board meeting? How do we vote? What is it that exactly that we're going to measure? But the most important thing we've got to do now, between now and the end of the year, and this is just starting off now, is we have to define how we will capture the data and report. And this is huge because this data is private, confidential. If you're a publicly traded company, it could be dangerously incriminating if it's in the wrong hands. So we've got to come up with a mechanism that is as transparent as possible to get trust without losing proprietary data information. So that's the big step between now and the end of the year. We also have a meeting with our first 6 monthly meeting with the European Commission is happening this month. We'll be doing meetings every 6 months to give our report, but also to get feedback on how they feel we're doing. Anybody who's not yet signed up, sorry, just a clear one. Anybody who's not yet signed up, this is the year that we set everything in place. If you have a point of view, we need you now giving us your opinions and making your votes.
Yeah, and no, true, and a very good point. And I think there is really already a big movement, and there's a lot of cooperation, so which is very positive. So this month we will have the meeting with the Commission, and then after that there will be a publication of more in detail the pact. So this month we will see a publication.
Yeah, so we're obviously going to update everybody on the membership. We're going to update everybody on the feedback from the European Commission. But one of the other things that we've done is, besides setting out the 5 goals that we think were defined as climate neutral data centers, it's not just carbon dioxide, it's efficiency, water, heat, and electronic equipment recycling. We've now also worked together, you, me, and many other people from various hyperscalers and data center operators. We have built a policy statement of 19 specific points where we're asking the European Commission to focus people and resources in the €2 trillion European Green Fund to enable us to be even more efficient. Things like building a smart energy grid and having us participate as a market player on a smart energy grid is just one area. Innovations around using less water, moving towards water cooling data centers, various things we're asking for. Also, we're looking for very specific funding for small to medium enterprises who may not have access to capital the way larger publicly traded entities do. So all of this is in that policy paper you're talking about. That's coming out this month. And we'll be giving that to Brussels as well.
So, well, thank you. So again, if you want to be part, go to Climate Neutral Data Center Pact, the website. We will share that also. It's also in the report, the link with some basic information. And there will be some publications this month on the focus. And well, again, thank you very much about the election. And I think this is right timing, and it's really also something that with the pact to take this further as a European united data center industry, from small to big operators. I think it's a really good times ahead, and I think we're doing the right thing. And so thank you very much for that, Michael.
Thank you, Stijn.
Thank you. All right. Thank you for that. And with that, I will hand over to Judith, and I will share my screen again. Hi, Judith.
Yes, wonderful. Thank you, Stijn. And of course, thank you, Michael Winterson. Very happy to have you on. And I'm sure everyone is still excited about the pact and everything that's developing. And we will definitely be looking forward working with all of you further on this. Thank you, Stijn, for leading today's session. Before we close down, we have 2 more announcements to make. First, and you can already see it on the screen, but we're very happy, we're very proud to announce the dates of the Kickstart Europe 2022 conference. Again, at the start of the year, it's going to be the Kickstart Europe event. Of course, it's the Kickstart of the year, so it's right at the beginning. It will take place on Monday, January 24th, and Tuesday, January 25th in Amsterdam. Of course, there's more updates to share later on. We will keep you posted, definitely. Regarding the strategy and networking conference. And yeah, we hope to meet you all in person at the start of next year. So hopefully, but we're confident that we will be able to meet each other, not virtually. But in terms of virtual meetings, now is the time for the networking part. There's again the link on the screen. You can check your agenda for some meetings, for the meetings you have. We know there are around 120 meetings already scheduled, so that's great to see. So please don't forget to make use of these opportunities. You can also make use of the algorithm matches, and you can meet someone new. So we have 500 registrants, so there are plenty of networking opportunities available. And yeah, then lastly, thank you very much for your attention, your questions, for joining us today. Don't forget to download a copy of the report. The recording of the session will be shared later this week. The report, yes, as I said, is available via the link you can see on the screen. So for now, enjoy the networking sessions this afternoon, and we hope to see you soon, offline or online. And thank you again for joining, and have a good day. Thanks. Bye.
Thank you.